So in today's video, we are going to be discussing the news of Davante Adams being traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, before we get into the video, please consider liking and subscribing, and let's just jump right into the video. Now, obviously, the biggest news of the day was Davante Adams being traded to the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, if I'm being 100% honest, this is not something that I expected to happen at all. I knew there was rumblings in the past because of Derek Carr and Davante Adams' connection from back when they played college football together at Fresno State. But to be honest, I never thought Davante Adams would ever leave the Green Bay Packers. I thought him and Aaron Rodgers had a special connection that would be hard to replace, nearly impossible to replace. And when he ended up leaving once we got the news today, I'll be honest, I was a little bit shocked and kind of baffled that something like this would happen, because Adams was franchise tagged by the Green Bay Packers, but apparently he just flat out refused to play on it. Now, I knew that Adams wasn't happy to play on it, but I knew that the Packers and Adams had time to work it out, that they still had about 4 months to work out this issue of Adams being on the franchise tag. And not only did it not last 4 months, Davante Adams just wanted the heck out of Green Bay. He got his wish. He's out of Green Bay, and now he is with the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, in this trade, the Packers get a first and a second round pick. Adams gets that extension that he wanted with Green Bay, which apparently he was offered, but the relationship between him and the Packers was just completely broken. There was no fixing it. So future me, apparently Davante Adams was offered more money to stay with the Packers, but he wanted to play with the Raiders because that was his lifelong dream. So I was wrong on that fact, my bad. And so he just wanted to get out of there, but he finally got that big contract that he wanted, 5 years, $141 million, a top paid player. But it makes the Raiders better. I really do think it makes the Raiders better. Like, the Raiders were able to make the playoffs last year in a dysfunctional situation, a situation that nobody wanted to be in, issues with Henry Ruggs, their head coach. They had a whole bunch of distractions surrounding their team all season long, and they prevailed and they made the playoffs. Rich Bisaccia, Derek Carr, everybody around them, as much hate as we like to give them because they're in division. I know, as a Chiefs fan, you're not supposed to talk good about them, but just as a pure football fan, that was one spectacular season that the Raiders had. And the fact that they were able to do that through a lot of dysfunction, I really am curious to see what the Raiders are able to do when they're not going through dysfunction through the entire season. Because now the Raiders on offense, I think, are completely loaded. They had Hunter Renfrow, who became a reliable target for Derek Carr all season long once Henry Ruggs were, taken away from the team because of his issues. You have Josh Jacobs, who's a fantastic running back, who I think is very good. You have Darren Waller, who's one of the top 5 tight ends in the NFL, and then you have Derek Carr, who, you say what you want about Derek Carr, the dude got the Raiders and helped them get to the playoffs. And if he didn't throw that interception, who knows what conversation we're having about the Raiders right now. So I think Davante Adams definitely makes the Raiders a threat. And as I mentioned, they played with each other in college. So I think that connection that they had in college is definitely going to help translate to the NFL, because you're throwing to a guy that you know and you trust. Like, you look at the connection that Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams built up. Well, Derek Carr played with Davante Adams. So I wouldn't be surprised if they are a top duo in the NFL. We get into week 7, 8, 9 into the season, and they are discussed as one of the top duos in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised. Davante Adams, a top 3, top 2, top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. And now you get a guy that he's played with before. So on paper, good things should happen with them. And they get paired up with Josh McDaniels. So you have Derek Carr, Josh McDaniels, and Davante Adams, 3 very smart guys. So I think they're going to all 3 get the best out of each other, and it's going to make for one heck of an offense, I think, for the Raiders next season. They're not going to go through dysfunction. You have Josh McDaniels, who came from the Patriots. I don't think it's going to be one of those situations where a Bill Belichick disciple leaves New England and that team just goes into the toilet. I think Josh McDaniels is going to the Raiders aren't going to turn into a terrible team. That's just not going to happen. They made the playoffs last year through all the garbage they went. This isn't going to be a situation like Matt Patricia or Joe Judge, where they leave the Patriots and then they just kill the franchise that they go to. This isn't going to be one of those situations. I think this is going to be one of those things that work out very, very nicely for the Raiders. I hate that it's going to happen to them, because I wish the AFC West didn't exist right now because of how just insane that it is. But I think just that trio alone is going to be a force to be reckoned with. But you just look at what the AFC had already. The Chargers got J.C. Jackson, Khalil Mack. They extended Mike Williams. The Broncos got Russell Wilson, Randy Gregory. They got a new head coach, Nathaniel Hackett, so they're expected. needed to be better on offense. The Raiders, as we mentioned, they got and the Raiders, as we were talking about, they got Chandler Jones. They got Josh McDaniels as their head coach. They extended Max Crosby. And now on top of all of that, the Raiders now get Davante Adams as their number one wide receiver. Now, I know Henry Ruggs was that deep threat that it's going to be really hard to replace, but at the same time, with somebody like Davante Adams, I don't know if a deep threat, like in this draft, with how loaded this draft class is, I think they're going to be able to find a deep threat wide receiver somewhere. And Deshaun Jackson's still on their roster, and he is kind of older. I don't know what production he still has left in him. But I do think that as much as the Raiders need a deep threat, I think having somebody like Davante Adams kind of eases that a little bit. And I don't know if the Raiders necessarily need to go as hard for that. But I mean, you look at the Raiders as a whole, the Raiders have gone all out this offseason. So they look like a team that can be a viable contender in this division. And I think this signing and trade by the Raiders makes the AFC West easily the toughest division of all of football. There was people trying to say that the AFC North was the toughest division with the Steelers, Bengals, Browns, and Ravens. And I'm just thinking, I'm like, maybe two of those teams will make the playoffs. You look at the AFC West, and it almost seems like 4 teams in the entire AFC West can make the playoffs. It feels like all 4 teams in the AFC West have a legitimate chance to make the playoffs. Now, the AFC is just going to beat each other up, but I still think that the AFC West as a whole, I think all 4 teams have a legitimate chance of making the playoffs. But then you look at the AFC as a whole, as I mentioned, the entire AFC West has a legitimate chance of making the playoffs. And then you have the Bills, who came off that unbelievable, heartbreaking loss to the Chiefs. You have the Steelers, who I'm never going to count them out as long as Mike Tomlin is the head coach. You have the Bengals, who seem to be getting their act together, and it looks like they're building an offensive line around Joe Burrow. The Ravens, they're not going to be injured to heck and back next year. They're going to be a healthy team. You have the Patriots, who again is a team I'm never going to count out. And if you just want to add other teams that seem to be making huge moves and making moves that seem to be in the right direction, I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this one, but you have the Jets and the Jaguars who are making moves. And then you have Mike McDaniel in Miami. There's the AFC is just absolutely loaded with teams right now, to the point where I would never, as a quarterback, want to go to the AFC, except if I'm one guy, because there's one guy in this entire situation that now it kind of doesn't make any sense at all. Aaron Rodgers, in my opinion, makes absolutely no sense right now in this situation. He mentioned in the before the offseason started, after the playoff loss to the 49ers, that he didn't want to be a part of a rebuild, which I completely understand. Aaron Rodgers, at his age, with that much talent, there's no reason at your age to be a part of a rebuild. You want to be able to be on a team that's going to win now, get to the Super Bowl, and then in a few years retire happily, that you were able to get a few more wins under your belt and possibly win the championship. But I think the Packers are closer to a rebuild right now than they are to a team that's a viable contender. I'm not going to lie. Once the Packers lost Davante Adams, and I know we're only in March, we have the entire offseason still to go, they're not a viable contender in the NFC. And that's weird to say, because there's literally 3 teams in the NFC. You have the Rams, you have the Bucks, and you have the Packers. Now, you can still keep the Packers in that pack of 3 teams because of Aaron Rodgers, but at the same time, that loss of Davante Adams kind of takes away, in my opinion, the Packers being a legitimate threat. Like, they were able to bring back pieces on defense, but Davante Adams is a huge loss to the Packers. And what's crazy about this entire situation is Aaron Rodgers knew before Davante Adams that this was going to happen. He knew that Davante Adams was never going to play for the Packers again, and Aaron Rodgers still signed his contract, which I think is the craziest thing out of anything. To be honest, this is the craziest thing that Aaron Rodgers has done over the entire 2 years. Whatever offseason drama BS that you want to talk about with Aaron Rodgers, this right here is the craziest thing I think I've heard about Aaron Rodgers in this entire situation. And it's so weird. I wish I can make sense of this right now. Like, we need him to go on the Pat McAfee show right now to explain himself, because this right here, it's the craziest thing ever. I don't get it. You literally just lost your top receiver, your best friend on the Packers. The connection in NFL history, that just, it looks so freaking easy. Like, you watch those two play football football. Davante Adams could be in triple coverage and Aaron Rodgers still gets it to him and it looks effortless. Like, you literally lost one of the greatest connections in football, but you knew that before you signed your contract. And I just think that's absolutely insane. I wish I could try. I'm trying to formulate thoughts of what Aaron Rodgers is possibly thinking. I was defending him, saying, you know, hey, he didn't want to get his money and his cap hit isn't as big as people, you know, are making it out to be. But it's just absolutely insane right now what's going on with Aaron Rodgers. I wish I could understand it, but I don't. This situation with Aaron Rodgers went from, okay, he's back with the Packers, to now being one, again, Aaron Rodgers is one of the biggest question marks in the entire NFL.